welcome back to the Venus Report. I'm Kate. I'm an embodiment coach and artist.
I'm Liz. I'm a content producer and studying herbalist focused on seasonality, and this is Astrology Unhinged.
If this is your first time back, welcome. Liz and I are sisters. We have been studying astrology just kind of casually our whole lives, and we decided to start this podcast to bring these conversations to you in an enriching and helpful way.
We believe astrology can truly help anyone who is open to self-actualization and discovery, so we are here to give you approachable astrology conversations that really anyone can listen to and hopefully gain some knowledge. So if you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. We are just starting out here on YouTube and Spotify, so anything helps. In the description, you'll find show notes, timestamps, everything that's applicable to the episode, plus some astrology resources for you.
Cool. So we're back this week with an interesting topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. I'm sure Liz has too.
Yes.
And we want to talk about the two different sides of astrology.
Yes.
So, with astrology, there's actually two different types. There's way more, but we're going to talk about the two major types of astrology. And that is tropical and sidereal astrology. So, Liz, can you, I guess, enlighten us about what, like, little timestamp or like tweet, what is the difference between the two?
Yes. So the main major difference between the two is tropical astrology is aligned with the seasons, what we know as the seasons, kind of based on our calendar year, major solstices, equinoxes, and how they align with the zodiac. Sidereal astrology is based on the constellations, their size, their placement in the sky. And the topic at hand here is the fact that things have shifted. Since astrology has become a thing, things have shifted. And from our understanding, sidereal and tropical astrology were the same. But over time, everything has shifted about 20 degrees, which is going to be kind of the highlight of the conversation today. What is most accurate? What does this mean? Etc., etc., etc.
So, astrology basically arose like 2.5 thousand years ago. So, 2 millennia ago. Which is like, it was in ancient Babylonian times, where in Mesopotamia, the ancient people were watching the stars, and particularly our 12 major planets in the solar system, and where they have moved based on the fixed constellations in the background of the sky, right? Mm-hmm. So they mapped out all the constellations, which are Aries to Pisces, so the 12 signs. And they could like kind of triangulate where each planet was in the sky based on the time of year. And they would say, oh, the sun right now is in the constellation of Aries, or is rising right into the first part of that big constellation, Aries. Mm-hmm. So that's where it all kind of began. So for, I guess 2,000 years ago, the sun would rise on the vernal equinox, the first day of spring. It would rise and be right at the bottom or the beginning part of the Aries constellation. And over time, like Liz is saying, the constellations have shifted and the planets are in different areas than they were back then, each on the same days of the year. So,
and I want to just say, this is mainly because we have a fixed understanding of the seasons, right? So every year we say, okay, March 21st is the spring equinox. December 21st is this winter solstice, right? But if you think about how we have defined that on Earth, but say Earth or the constellations, not sure which, because it's either or, has just slowed down a bit, right? So if things are slowing down either in Earth's perspective, meaning like Earth has a different way of moving or the planets have a different way of moving, things are now just a little slower than what they were. But to us, March 21st comes around, we're like, happy spring. Even though the sun might still be in Pisces and it's not actually the sun entering Aries, which was like the mark of spring. I don't know if that
Yeah.
clarifies anything.
Yeah, so I also like was doing some research, and uh, apparently every 72 years the constellations shift about 1 degree from our vantage point on Earth. So that's interesting. So it took years and years for astrologers to notice this, that eventually now at this time, 2023, they have shifted about 20 degrees or so. So what Liz was saying is in sidereal astrology, also called Vedic astrology, this is also the kind of similar as Vedic astrology. If you are a 20 degrees Cancer sun, that's your natal placement. In sidereal and Vedic astrology, you would be a 0 degrees Cancer, right? So 20 degrees backwards is really kind of what sidereal would say your chart is, because that's where the planets are in relation to the constellations. So it's
And
interesting.
it's,
It's like, yeah, it's like which one do we read? And I guess it's
yeah.
actually your beliefs, your own belief systems. And the one that we read is tropical, because tropical has been so grounded in our experience as humans, and like my personal experience as a Scorpio sun with these specific placements. And I also have read my sidereal chart, and there's also some truth there. So you can
Yeah.
kind of blend the two. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and I also feel like it's going to be a really interesting time when however many years from now when things are pretty much exactly a sign apart, because if we're taking it by like the 30-degree general rule, I've heard things about sidereal astrology, for instance, that like Scorpio is like the smallest and it's not actually 30, and then Virgo is like the largest. So it's an interesting thing, but I think it's going to be a really interesting time when things are almost exactly off, meaning like exactly 30 degrees away, because I think there's going to be maybe some awareness around that just from astrology and astrologers itself, because we'll be able to track that, we'll be able to tell when that time comes. But what you were saying about the seasons and how, well, about tropical astrology and how much it's accurate to like our daily life on Earth, I still think there is much to learn and much to go by with tropical astrology for the very reason of this. Back then, when it actually was accurate to what was in the sky, there were certain events and certain celebratory things that would take place to celebrate these major turning points, the cardinal turning points of like the new seasons or the ending of seasons and welcoming in the new. And that is still accurate to how we are today based on the date, not based on where the planet is, the sun is from our perspective. So I think there is still like we have with tropical astrology, we are carrying technically the symbolism of the original, like originally known astrology in terms of like where it was in the sky. Like we are carrying that on. But now it's almost like to me sidereal seems like new, like not new aged, but almost like a little bit more. It's like that new innovation of like, oh, we let's be more accurate to what's actually in the sky versus like what have we always done around this time of year. And to me it's huge because it's like I do focus on seasonality in my work and the things that I'm studying about like northeast and ecology and things like that. It's interesting because it feels almost like, oh, is this a lie because the sun isn't actually in whatever it is right now, Virgo? It's like, are we just all under this misconception? But I don't know. It's so hard to determine because we have built our lives around the seasons. So if we still are sticking with those dates and the seasons with those dates, is it really that different than the sun being there? I don't know. I don't know.
That's what I'm questioning too in my
Yeah.
brain. It's like, To me, the first day of spring is Aries energy.
Yeah.
The first day of spring,
Yeah.
which is March 21st on the calendar, that's Aries energy and the equinox. And
Yeah.
then, like, the first day of winter is Capricorn energy, right?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah. And that's to me like the seasons is what
Mm.
we focus on in tropical versus the constellations in sidereal or Vedic.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the way that I would like ever really interpret this in a solid way is like we've mentioned the fusion of energies. So obviously back in the day the all of these zodiac signs were defined by what was brought and what was experienced on earth when the sun was, say, in Taurus, Gemini, all of that. So those things are still accurate even if the sun is in Taurus entering Gemini, and to us we're like, oh, it's like the end of Gemini season when that is happening, right? But if you take into account the fusion of the real rootedness of what these signs bring and what they are, we can kind of have a very accurate, very, very accurate general idea if you're somebody who likes the idea of sticking with where the planets actually are in the sky, but also being cognizant of the season and how humans over time and over millennia have defined seasons based on like the axes of the earth and all of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the fusion of energies is interesting. So if you're a say you're a 0 degrees Cancer in in a tropical astrology, you would be a 20-degree Gemini in
Mm,
sidereal. So if you're confused about this, you just go 20 degrees back to for what your tropical sun sign is, and
mm,
what is the cusp energy of Gemini Cancer, and
yeah.
that can be maybe you're finding some accuracy in that. Um,
Hmm.
I know that we want to do a reading. We're going to do it in a future episode. A reading about the fusion of the cusps. So the two signs that are close to each other,
Yeah.
the cusp of that.
Yeah. I think that will be really interesting. And I there's something I think I really believe in the deacons. And I know this is a term that it's not really a general term in astrology, but basically to me, and I think in ancient astrology, deacons are defined as the three parts of a season of a zodiac season. And when you think about it, it's like the 30 degrees. So it's like every 10 degrees there's like a different evolution of energy that is taking place there, right? And there's so much on this that I'm really interested in. I want to kind of research that a bit deeper, but there's certain things that can show up if you're like in the first 10 degrees of a certain sign, or if your Mercury is in the middle degrees of a certain sign. It shows up differently. And so with this, like I what you just said is actually very accurate to me in my situation. I'm a 5 degree Cancer Sun and a 3 degree Cancer Moon. So, and then I'm a very late Gemini with my Mercury and Venus. So like everything is actually shifted back pretty much to the signs before it. So it's I find just the symbolism of the evolution of where a planet is in the zodiac is really symbolic. I think it should be considered when interpreting astrology in general. And I love the idea of it being like this beginning. It's all about the cycles. It's like the beginning is the youth, the young approach to something. The middle is like the learning, taking the lessons from youth, but also in like maturing into the older degrees of the sign. And then the later degrees of the sign, how the anaretic degrees is defined in astrology, is all accurate to like the end of a life cycle, and like how spring shifts into winter, that all of that. So I think that that stuff is really cool and really accurate.
So that was the difference between tropical and sidereal astrology. If y'all have any questions, please comment. We'd love to chat about this topic. it's a hot topic right now. And we're going to do a reading on our next episode of the fusion of the two signs, so the two energies.
Yes.
And we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.